Welcome to the special edition of Country Music Jubilee. I'm your host, Richard A. Plagg. My great honor to have Wyatt Wadzink here today. Wyatt, great to see you. 10 years, is that right?
10 years and I called it quits.
You produced I think you stopped like at 101?
Yeah.
100, over 100 shows produced down here at Northwest.
1 hour shows, so that's over 101 hours of programming.
Excellent. Let's go back to the beginning. Give us a little background how you got interested in country music and how this show formulated.
Okay. Back in 1957, I got a signal from my creator.
Right.
And he told me that particular day, which was a Labor Day, that my older brother would die, but I didn't know how. Mm-hmm. So I stayed home. My parents and my two kid brothers went to the state fair. I stayed home because I was anticipating problems. I called my brother before he left. He was going up to Forest Lake for a picnic and swimming with another couple. They had a baby at that time, which was just a few months old. And lo and behold, I did get a call, and where he had drowned. I'd called him and I cautioned him, "Do you have to go today?" He says, "Yeah, they're going to be expecting us up there."
Right.
So they went, but I told him I had really bad feelings. I thought maybe it'd be a car accident or something of that sort. But to make a long story short, he drowned. He was an excellent swimmer, and it took him a long time to find him, and he was floating out in the middle of the lake. An older couple that were out fishing found him.
Really?
So anyhow, after that had passed, then I ended up in later months, August I think it was, of '57, I ended up with a very severe case of Asian flu. And at that time, it was an epidemic across the country. I spent 2 weeks solid up in my bedroom upstairs, second floor. The only time I came downstairs is I had to let them know so that the family would move out of the way, and I went in and used the bathroom. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I ate, slept, and sat for the entire time. We didn't have TV at that time either, back in '57, so it was kind of boring. So I had time to think about things and everything else, and in October of that year, I had predicted in the beginning of that year, I predicted that there'd be a man-made object sent into space to circle the Earth.
Right.
And everybody scoffed at me because it's never been done.
Sure.
There's no record of it, nothing. Our country wasn't even trying to put something up there at that time. And after that, I told everybody, mark it on your calendar as October 4th.
Right.
6 months prior to its event, they did that. And they laughed at me. I said, well, mark it on your calendar. Mm-hmm. That day came and went, and they laughed at me because nothing was reported.
Right.
But 2 months later, it was reported that Russia had sent Sputnik up into orbit around the Earth.
And was it released to the public? That information?
That finally. They held back until it was successful.
All right. Is that right?
They did not want it out there, so it was after the launch and successful orbiting. Mm-hmm. Then they notified the world.
Right. And that shocked the world.
It shocked the world, and it put a badge of honor on the Russians at that time. That's when our country, got concerned enough to start a space program themselves.
Right.
So that triggered it. But how I knew was just, it came into my head, in my subconscious when I was sleeping. Mm-hmm. And
What would you call this, a dream or a vision? How did you
I think I was spoken to.
Okay.
And
I know your faith is a very rock solid foundation for you. Is that correct?
Yep, that is correct. And so back in about 1958, I got a message, and I wrote it down on a piece of paper next to my bed. And I might advise anybody that might have dreams, at least that's the way they appear to be, and they can have a pad there and write down what they in their subconscious. They'll be surprised what they write down.
Oh, sure.
But I found words from God, and he said, share with my children, but profit not.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not to become a profitable item, but to share with the world, in other words, to all of his children. And that was words called Can You Say?
Right.
And that was back in 58. And that was after my brother died, and I was having these visions. I had visitors that came to me at night. I remember them as a bright glow. There were not distinctive features. You could either call them cosmic friends of ours or angels. I wasn't sure.
All right.
And they spoke to me, and I understood them.
Well, after all this time, have you kind of decided, were they angels or kind of?
I believe they were angels. In fact, I think most of our contacts that we have with our cosmic friends are angels. Mm-hmm. Whether it's got wings or not, I don't know. But
well, these cosmic friends you're talking about, have you ever actually seen them, or did you just feel the presence?
That I feel, but I also have seen them.
Okay.
And they gave me some words to always remember the rest of my life. So if I'm ever spoken to again, I can greet them. And it's called Zunda Ducci.
Oh, really?
And that's a word that says hello there. It's a greeting. Mm-hmm. So not to fear them because they look different than us. And unfortunately, we have a reputation of not liking somebody that looks different than us. Mm-hmm. And go back to the Indians, go back to the black folks in this country. Because they look different than us, we kind of treat them a little bit differently.
Right. Well, can you give us just a general description?
General description was they were fairly tall, and they were not, as people describe, these little gray people. Oh. These were fairly tall. I'd say probably about my height, they're a little taller.
All right.
And they spoke through the mind.
Okay.
I never heard words.
Sure.
Telepathy. I heard words, but there was never any in the air. No vocalizing. And they assured me that their arrival here is not to take over or not to tell us what to do or control us or anything else. They want to be benefactors. They want to, benefit us. They are farther advanced than we are, and they're a creation of God himself.
All right.
So this way, they were created before we were, and they've advanced much more rapidly than we have because we've had wars and things that set us back.
Right.
And Jesus Christ came to earth as a crossbreed between, that's why Mary was a virgin, mm-hmm. Virgin Mary, is that it was a cross between this first race that God created, the advanced cosmic friends, mm-hmm. and they actually brought him forward to Mary, and she had a artificial inception.
Okay.
Artificially, I don't know what you call it. Was it inception or something?
Insemination.
Insemination, yeah. And that's why in his teens, Christ disappeared. Mm-hmm. He was taken back to their home planet and educated.
Really?
Taught the spiritual way of presentation and so on and so forth. And then he came back to us.
Well, the scriptures say that he'll be coming back again.
He will, but he will not come again until we are no longer barbaric society.
Understandably so.
And he's not going to send him back here again. God's not going to send another emissary that's going to have levitation and all these features that we are uncomfortable with. Right. And that's why they destroyed him, because they were uncomfortable with all the things he could do.
Yes.
And that is why that happened. And to back up just a little bit on that, the Star of Bethlehem was a mothership that guided the wise men mm-hmm. across the desert to Bethlehem, because they knew these wise men would understand the importance of Christ.
Right.
and as where anybody else would laugh at it or question it or something else. So it was something that had to be done, and people were not accepting his walking on water and levitation and everything else, and they feared him.
Right.
Fear drives people to destroy. If you're afraid of a country, you're afraid of a race, you destroy them, and or try to, one way or another. I mean, there's right now in Washington, it's everybody, because they're on a different party, they're just trying to destroy one another.
And there's also a lot of greed involved.
Oh, that's it.
Money,
Yep.
you know. Now we got these billionaires that, I mean, if you're, let's say you make 5 or 10 billion. Do you really need 20 or 30 billion? I mean,
No.
It's getting a little out.
Well,
just a few people got all the wealth. You got like the 1%. Got 90% of the wealth. That distorts everything.
You don't get to be a pro football player or baseball player or basketball player. You don't gain that wealth in this society. Very few outside of those athletic options end up.
Or internet people like that.
Yeah,
like, or computer whizzes like Gates and.
Yeah.
You know.
And those are the people. That's a business climbing, or business wealth. As where the other ones, it's just a physical wealth, because they go out and perform physically and they get paid good money for it, and it takes thousands of people to pay their salary, and that's why they charge so much at the gate.
Right.
But no, it's what happened is that Star of Bethlehem, like I said, was the guiding light.
Well, you said that was a UFO. I mean, a mothership.
Mothership.
Well, we hear a lot about UFOs, sightings, and that. Are there still motherships around the Earth, or
there are?
So.
They're still here, and they can give signs to people that they're trying to reach people that are more passive and not aggressive.
Okay.
Those are the people that are in line for receiving communication with our cosmic friends.
All right.
And
well, that's quite a foundation.
I don't like the word alien, because that's an alienable. You're alienating them, and I've always referred to them, I guess, as cosmic friends, or cosmic.
The first race of beings, would you say? Or?
That's right. They're one of the earlier races. There's many out there.
Oh, sure.
It's about 8 of them that I've heard of.
Okay.
But the one that is doing more with our government and with our people behind the scenes, that's why they don't release it so much to the public, because there's too much anger out there. And people feel threatened, so then they want to destroy.
Well, there's the scientific principles too. Like most scientists say, the Earth is like close to 15, or our universe is 15 billion years old. Is that? Do you agree with that, or?
I would say yes. We were just a rock at that time.
Yeah.
And we did not have the life per se developing, except in the oceans, and that took a long time.
Right, right.
That's the reason people should eat kelp. That's a seaweed from the ocean.
Right.
And that's where we came from, basically. I'm not so much into the reincarnation thing, or the aspect that we were created by anybody other than God.
Okay. Well, when you die, you have a soul.
The soul passes on.
That's how you kind of see
That's
it.
what goes to heaven.
Right.
And in heaven, you have no ills, no pains, no sores, no nothing. You have a perfect body, and you're about middle age.
Well, that gives us a pretty good rock-solid foundation, I think.
That's it.
Now, what's this here you have? You said this is something that came to you, and you wrote this?
At night I found this on
Now, was this 1958?
1958. I woke up, and there was "Can You Say" written out, and it was just about 8 sentences. And I'll just touch base on that.
Sure, go ahead.
Can you say in parting, with the day that's slipping fast, that you helped a single person of the many you have passed? Is a single life rejoicing over what you did or said? Do some whose hopes were fading now with courage look ahead? Did you waste a day or lose it? Was it well or poorly spent? Did you leave a trend of kindness or a scar of discontent? As you closed your eyes in slumber, do you think I would say you have made the world much better for the life you've lived today? And these are gospel God words from him, our Creator himself. So that's why it says, do you think I would say? Because he is reciting this to his children.
Right.
And that I have done what he said. I spread it around the country and around the world. It's been seen in Italy, and I've gotten feedback from Las Vegas, from all around the country where it's popping up. Some people are having it on the bottom of every email they send out.
Okay.
But I could never I was working for about 5.5 years with a Hall of Fame country music singer in Texas and in the Midwest up here. And he said he writes a lot of music and a lot of songs. He said this could not be put to music.
Really?
So that disappointed me. But then about 3 years ago, a lady that came to one of our country music shows, I was talking to her and I told her about Can You Say? And she said, could I get a copy of that? She says, I'd like to try and see if I could put it to music. I said, well, Country Music Hall of Famer said, can't be done.
No.
Let me try, she said. And I said, well, you let me hear it before you let others hear it. I want to know.
Yeah, great, of course.
Well, then a show of ours came along and she was in the audience, and I thought that's nice because she'd been there a couple times. And during the show, the leader of the group that was on stage, which was a gospel group, and they stopped me and interrupted me and said they had a change in programming. So he says, and I was puzzled, and he said, just go ahead and sit down. He said, then he asked her to come up.
Really?
And she came up, got onto a microphone, and she started singing it, and I thought the angels were singing to me.
Amazing.
It was so beautiful, and I had tears running down my face, and it was all caught on camera because we were taping our show at the time.
Great.
We don't stop and go and edit and all this. It's just what you see is what you get, you know.
Sure.
And it choked me up, but good. She went into the studio, and they tried to record it, but they said it's too short. They need a turnaround in the middle and a second verse. I said, well, I can't write one. God wrote this one,
right.
and I can't write over him. I'm not going to.
Can't go over his head?
No, I just wasn't going to alienate him. I do that enough, I think. But anyhow, so I prayed for 8 months that I could get a second verse out of him.
Wow.
And I was getting disgusted because it wasn't happening, and I think he knew that. But then pretty soon, there it was. I had the second verse.
Excellent. You got that there?
I got that there, and it says, can you say in parting that your heart is filled with faith and your life is lived in service, showing how to live with grace? Did you help a suffering friend find the way through a mess, having tried to love and help them find the way to being blessed? Does your heart reflect my warmth and share my every word, to let them hear my message, the best they've ever heard? Then repeat from the first verse. As you close your eyes in slumber, do you think I would say, you have made the world much better for the life you've lived today? And I don't take credit for writing it. I just say I was graced with the...
You're just a vessel.
I was blessed to scribe this for the Lord, for God. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the way it'll always be. And that was in 1962 that came about.
The finished song.
Now they can go ahead, and I was trying to get someone to put it on sheet music with the notes on page. And one I was trying, it was a couple from Ohio, and they're gospel singers, international gospel singers, and they were up in St. Cloud, and I went up, I talked to them previously, and so I met them up in St. Cloud. In fact, they got tickets for me for their show, and I gave them the information and the melody on DVD, gave them that DVD that was done on their show, and they took it, but I never heard another word from them.
Really?
And when I did call them, they were down in Texas at that time, and their roadie, the guy that travels with them, said, "Well, I'll tell them you called." That was it. They said they're on stage now. So, and then they never called me. So I thought, I'm not going to do that. And the band that performed it for that lady that wrote or put the music to it, the melody, he wanted like $400 just to put it to music.
Really?
And I said, this is an act of blessings to the Lord, giving him of your time and your skills.
Yeah, most people would understand that.
And he said, well, it's very time consuming. So he says, I have to have that much. And I said, well, I can't afford it because I don't get paid for anything.
No.
The show I do, that's
all
a nonprofit,
volunteers.
volunteers. And all of this that I've done for the Lord has all been time consuming on my part. I go out and when I went around the country, I could stop at churches. I didn't care what the denomination was and introduce them to this Can You Say?
Right.
Now I've got the whole thing, and I will soon have it to music. There's a fellow in northern Minnesota that has a music store. He's also a performer, and he writes music. He's working on it now to write out the sheet music for me. He understands. So once I get it, and I told him, go ahead and record it. And once I have it on a CD recorded and I have the sheet music, then I go make my calls to all the churches I go out and visit and bring them a DVD or a CD of that music and the sheet music, hoping they will perform it in church and make it part of their gospel songs. So I'm trying to do that, and I think the good Lord, at 77 years old, the good Lord has given me the time to try and complete this project. Once it is, I'm sure I will probably be called home at that time. But right now, I've got work to do, and that's part of it. So.
Okay, so let's get back to your beginnings. We're talking early 60s.
Yep.
Did you live in Texas for a while?
Well, I worked back in the 60s. I worked at a 18-track recording studio. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the Jolly Brothers.
The Jolly
Polka
Brothers.
Polka band, Jolly Brothers. Right. And well, one of the leader of that group, his name is Tomaszewski. He had the studio, and we recorded, polka bands and old-time music and stuff like that. So that was not country. I got into country later on when I worked with music bands and so forth, smaller, unknown bands, and tried to promote them. I made no money at it. Again, I haven't made money. The last money I got for my music involvement was back when I worked in the studio. But other than that, since then, everything I've done has all been gratis.
This is a passion.
It is. I figure music, no matter what kind it is it's international. Anybody can appreciate it and enjoy it. It's like a language. If you don't understand it, it doesn't mean anything to you. Music does.
Well, music covers a wide spectrum, of course. And when somebody says, oh, I don't like country western, I don't like rock and roll, I kind of challenge them and say, well, there's a lot of overlap, and there's a lot of talent. When you see talent and somebody that takes it to another level, I just appreciate the quality of the music and
what their dedication is.
It doesn't matter if it's country western, bluegrass, rock and roll, jazz. Right. When you see professional talent, somebody that can really perform, you just got to take your hats off to them and say, this guy's talented and he's got a calling.
Yeah, well, our theme song for the show that started back in 08, after I came off the road from that, working as a publicist for Country Music Hall of Famer, I decided to sell my house down in Texas. I was going between Texas and up here, so I had two places. Right. And it got expensive, plus a 1,500-mile trip one way down to Texas and back, 1,500 miles. It was a 3,000-mile trip every year just to go down and work for nothing down there for him. Really? And I broke that off after 5.5 years and came back home, sold my place in Texas, and decided I'll have to get used to winters again up here.
Yes. Well, hey, that's a good place to take a short break. Now you've come back to the motherland.
Right.
You're well-rounded. You've been around the country. You've met a lot of people in the country music genre. And I tell you what, Wyatt, let's take a short break. Once again, I'm Richard A. Claddy. This is a special edition of Country Music Jubilee. And we'll be right back after these short breaks. Welcome back to a special edition of Country Music Jubilee. I'm your host, Richard A. Claddy. Once again, I'm honored to have the founding father right here in the studio, Wyatt Wadzink. Great to have you here.
Yep.
Just to refresh our good people's memories, 10 years down here, 101 shows. Now you've more or less retired. You've had some health issues, you've had other things, and it just you felt it was time. And I've been volunteering, helping you for a few years, and we kind of gradually you turned it over to me. And so we've set the foundation. Now let's go back. You've come back to Minnesota from Texas, and what was your association here with Northwest Community TV?
I saw them on TV, and I saw that they offered studio instruction.
You're flipping through the channels.
Yeah, and years and years ago, I spent some time working for Channel 2, which is a public station, and I did off-camera voiceovers.
All right.
So I was introductions to shows and whatnot, and public addresses, public announcements, and stuff like that. I didn't have any camera work. I never worked in front of the camera. Mm-hmm. So I was learning here the camera and the audio and every aspect of it, and decided that I had spent many years in promotion, marketing and promotion.
Right.
I thought I could start a program.
Didn't you take those classes, like from, you knew the big names like Zig Ziglar?
Yes, I had some touches with some pretty powerful people, spiritual and strength-wise. One is Art Linkletter.
Oh yeah.
I had a chance to sit down with him here in Minnesota, and we went over a lot of things. He taught me a lot of things, pointed things out to me, and my idol, who that's the reason I got involved with this tutoring sort of thing, was Paul Harvey.
Really, Paul?
He was my radio king as far as I was concerned.
He was very successful for what, like 50 years?
Yeah, right. He just, and he captivated people. He had one saying at the end of his show, "Have a good day." So I mean, that's the way he ended his shows, and he was, I never heard a swear word out of him or anything negative. He was always positive.
Right.
And I learned that from him, and also Zig Ziglar, like you mentioned. He's written a lot of books, and he's also positive attitude and motivational skills is what he stands for. And that was very good to me. I'd never heard of him before I met him, but
So you've learned from the best.
I have had some wonderful tutoring, and I just really appreciate it.
So you figure that's helped you to relate to people down here?
Absolutely.
Because like you said, we're all volunteers.
Yep.
And we're not down here for the money. We're down here to take advantage of this fantastic facility. We've got great staff, great volunteers. And if you live in the northern suburbs of Minneapolis, it's all free. All you have to do is take the orientation. And if you want to produce your own show, they have classes on camera and studio production.
Right.
And then you have editing, which is my forte. I really love to get in there and edit. And like I said, I've been involved with this facility for over 30 years now, I believe.
Yeah.
So, and that's just, like I said, a great place to take advantage of.
Since 2008, when I took the classes and so forth, and I started in July of 2008, I started this show, Country Music Jubilee. Mm-hmm. I had to do research across the country to find out if anyone else was using it. Mm-hmm. And when it was last used, and it was used by a national artist back in, I can't remember what year it was, but from Nashville. It was beamed out of Nashville. So being it wasn't in use, I was able to subscribe to it, and it became mine. From then on, nobody else can use it.
Right.
So I've got a website. It's countrymusicjubilee.com. and which you will be inputting from time to time, and getting that filled in so people know what's happening and what's coming, and some of the little behind the cameras information now and then. You could have a little column there, I guess.
Sure. So you're right now in a transition phase where you haven't quite decided where you're going to move to, or where you're retired, of course.
I was retired before I started this show for almost, back in the early 60s.
Really?
And now it's time, because I haven't really had a retirement.
You want to do some fishing? And
I want to teach worms to swim. That's what I tell people. I'm going to teach swimming.
Okay, so you're down here. You've seen Northwest Community TV. You know it's a great facility. You come down here. Did you take the orientation class?
I took everything.
And then you decided to, didn't you travel the state to see other cable stations and see how?
Yep.
How
the first year after I'd had about 6 or 7 shows under my belt, I set out on the road, and I was up in the Iron Range. I was up to Grand Rapids, all across the country, and throughout Minnesota to start with. And then that didn't seem enough. I wanted to promote further.
Sure.
And so one of the directors from one of the stations, Monaga, Minnesota, told me about a national library of cable programming.
Right.
And he said, and it's out east, and it's called Peg Media. Mm-hmm. He said, I have been talking, he said, with the other directors up on the Iron Range, Virginia, and all those that I've gone out and talked to.
Duluth.
Duluth and Hermittown up in Duluth.
Proctor.
Yep, I was up in all those stations and talked to the people. Well, he had stayed in touch with a lot of the Iron Range people up there, because Monaga is a little more west of some of the Iron Range area, but he knows them. And they suggested that it's a national quality, which flattered me completely. And so he suggested that, he says, can I send shows out to Peg Media for other stations around the country to go in and preview and download? It costs 99 cents. They can download the entire hour show.
Right. That's great.
And show it to all their subscribers. Well, there's one that caught my eye in Florida, has 180,000 subscribers. That one station. So when they pay for the download, you know it's going to be seen by a lot of people.
Right. So right now, how many? You're almost cover the whole country.
Yeah,
or
coast to coast. It's California. It's down in Texas, McAllen, Texas, all around the country. To over 1 million homes, roughly. It's available to in over 1 million homes.
That's outstanding. That's quite an achievement.
Well, then I also have 3 stations locally: Blaine, which is North Metro cable, and then Minnetonka, and then St. Louis Park.
Right.
And they all stream it on the internet when they show it to their subscribers.
Right.
When it comes up on their cable system for their subscribers, it also is streamed on the internet. So anybody around the world can watch it.
Wow, that's great.
And I've gotten emails from the UK, a number of them from the UK, from throughout Canada, and then also Australia.
Well, it sounds like I got some big shoes to fill.
You are biting off the big bite.
I'm ready to meet the challenge, Wyatt. Ready to meet the challenge.
My saying is, I did it for 10 years. Now it's in your court for another 10 years.
Right. And so I need a young assistant to get involved because, like I said, it's all volunteers.
Right.
We need help. We got great people right now, great crew people that run the cameras. And a lot of them have been with you for years.
Well, yeah, our graphics person, she's been with us the entire time that we've had our show, and I think she's only missed 3 shows.
Wow, that's outstanding.
So when you got 101 shows and she's only missed 3, what's the math?
She's coming up on her 100th show.
Yeah, right. So I mean, it's it's like a family. I know they don't have to be here.
Right.
And it's hard. Sometimes I get so set on watching the show and making sure everything. I come in on Saturday for the taping, start at 11, and I start working. I want everything to go smooth. Once the cameras start, we don't stop and go.
Right.
We don't cover up mistakes. That's human interest.
Right.
And that's reality TV as far as I'm concerned. So.
Well, it's amazing. Very few mistakes happen. I mean, if you properly prepare, you'll find out experience, of course.
Yep.
Everybody kind of pitches in, and if something does, if there's a blooper, you don't stop for anything. You just let's just keep going.
That's right. Well, a cute story is the first show I did was the Hall of Famer I worked for.
Okay.
And he came in with his band. And his band consisted of a bass player that was Tub Larson.
Okay.
And the reason they called him that is because he played the bass with a big wash tub, upside down, and a stick sticking up, and strings down to the bottom of that barrel.
Oh, okay.
And or of that big drum. And then so he was playing that with the bib overalls and the whole bit. So he fit the part in a beat up hat. Great viewing for people. If you just heard the music, you wouldn't know. No. But watching it on TV, people really enjoyed it. Well, this Country Music Hall of Famer did a lot of his own songs that he wrote, and they were beautiful. He had been on the road with the Grand Ole Opry road crew for a number of years. So he was versed in that, but he was kind of pulling back and just doing his own thing now. But what happened there with him is they started out at a song, and he was playing one song, and the band was playing another. He stopped them, and then tried to figure out, and his lead player was trying to tell him what song they were doing, and so then he turned to his wife way in the back of the audience and hollered to her and says, "Hey, Pee-wee, how does that go now?" We debated about cutting that out of the show because it might be hurting, might hurt him, But we decided to leave it, and that became one of our draws. We got more feedback just from that reality, that people just really totally enjoyed the human part of it,
Sure.
Here is a professional, and he's been a professional since back in the 50s, and He's been everywhere, like the song, everywhere. You know, I've been everywhere, boy. You know.
Sure. Well, most of your bands that have appeared over the years are from the Twin Cities area. No.
No, I was bringing them in. I've had a band up here twice from Galveston, Texas.
Wow.
And they did Cajun, Louisiana Cajun, because Galveston is so close to Louisiana.
Right.
They would learn from the best in Louisiana.
Sure.
And they would do also Texas country music, which is a little different than the national country music. So he would come up here with his band, and they'd entertain, and then do with some other shows around town and stuff. And then I had one come up from Chicago. I've had the international yodeling champion came in from Michigan.
Wow.
And did the show with her and her husband and group. And, you know, I've had them from all around. I had one guy that contacted me from the UK, from England.
Right.
And he wanted to know on my email, he said, how far, or I said, you know, there's not really anything we pay you. We can't pay you, and it's going to be an expensive trip for you to come here for our show.
Right.
He said, well, this summer I'm going to be in Florida. How far is Florida from Minnesota? I said, well, don't hitchhike. So,
it's a big country here.
Anyhow, he never followed up on it, never came. But, you know, it was, they don't understand, I guess, you know, but I make them aware of every band that's played on our show has not been paid a dime.
Right.
So we thankfully thank them.
And you're offering them exposure.
I try to get them promoted into
Right.
local venues and things like that.
And you make a nice DVD for them. And
Yep.
They can
Yep,
have
they
a
get
copy of the
a
show.
copy of the show they can use for marketing.
Well, I'll tell you what, Wyatt, let's take a short break. I got to show you the video. I met Donald Trump about 20 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was here. We had a governor, I don't know if you ever heard of Jesse Ventura, but he was the governor, and he was a big celebrity. And
I do a cable access TV show in Brooklyn Park. You're running for president, maybe we can do a show.
If he's ever president, you should come on my show. So maybe someday he'll be here.
Yeah, it's super cool.
All right, so that's what it's all about. Northwest Community TV is our home base for the nurse rescue team as we get ready for Jerry Gunn Zombie Killer this fall, all part of our big Halloween spectacular. Welcome, Dasha!
Hey.
Oh my. Welcome back to this special edition of Country Music Jubilee. I'm your host, Richard A. Claddy, coming to you from CCX Create, all part of the CCX Media empire here in the northern suburbs of Minneapolis. Once again, my great guest, man of my great honor to meet, Wyatt Wozniak. Great to see you again.
Thank you.
Welcome back for this final edition. Now, we've kind of covered a lot of ground, but just one more time, tell people about the good times you've had down here and some of the highlights, and tell people the magic of Country Music Jubilee.
Well, music is a universal language, and it's something that any country, and this one reaches out outside the United States as well, but in any country, I know that we cover under the umbrella of country music. The reason I started this was basically because people were saying, I don't like that kind of music.
Right.
I said, what kind of music? And they'd name the group. I said, that's bluegrass.
Sure.
And then I had other ones that say, I don't like that because it's too razzmatazz, you know. And I said, what is it, you know? And it's Cajun music. So under the umbrella of country music is country western, which is a very popular, goes back to Gene Autry and Roy Rogers and all of them, and the Sons of the Pioneers. And then there's country, traditional country. Mm-hmm. And then there's also country gospel, and we do gospel shows.
Right.
1 hour full gospel, and it's enjoyable. We don't have a lot of preaching or anything else, but good music that tells a good story.
Right.
And then it carries a good message. And then we also have honky tonk, which is the old razzmatazz type things in the saloons.
Right.
That's razzmatazz. And then there's the bluegrass, like I mentioned. And then there's also mountain folk music,
Right.
which usually tells a story as well.
So that's what you've been trying to put the focus on?
All under country music.
Right.
And the people at home, I make sure they understand this is a bluegrass group. This is bluegrass music. Mm-hmm. This is country music. This is western. You know, so this way they're not balling it all into one, saying I don't like country music because of this, you know, but what they don't like is maybe Cajun.
Right, sure. And there's
Maybe
a lot. There's something there for everybody out there.
So there's something out there, and it's real good. But back in 2014, I slipped and fell and hit my face on a cement curb.
Ouch.
I went to the hospital. I had blood on the brain. I had a traumatic brain injury. It took me 2.5 years of therapy to get back some of my abilities. Mm-hmm. I'm still not good with this eye. I have prescription readers.
Right.
And my balance is still off occasionally.
So you've had good days and bad days.
I've had good days. I've come back a long ways, but there's nothing more they can do. It's going to have to take time.
Right.
And that's fine. But 2.5 years, and I had help where you helped out in the emceeing, because sometimes I could get up there and I feel I'm going to fall over.
Wow.
For a show or two, I was using my walker to get up there. And I said I was not too proud to let people know that I was unstable on my feet, and what I say might not be what I want to say.
Right.
Because my speech and my memory just was not good.
Well, you did an outstanding job to keep doing it for over 2 years after that injury.
Did. And,
but now it's kind of caught up.
I just decided that something like that could sideline me. Something like that, they told me if it was about an inch further over, or I guess up or down, and I'd be dead.
Right.
Because it would drive the nose cartilage right up into the brain, and I'd be through. That's what they were afraid of when they saw the blood on the brain. But so I've been there and done that, and I don't recommend it to anybody.
No, it's not good.
Even my enemies, I wouldn't, if I had any, I wouldn't have.
You don't wish it on anybody.
No, not at all. So that's that was a bad time in my life. But the good time is seeing my family come in on a Saturday for the show. I will miss that. I'll be here once in a while. I'll chip in where I can and help where I can. But basically, I'm an audience person.
And you're gradually turning it over. You're still helping behind the scenes with
Right.
the bands and stuff.
Right.
And it's something I really appreciate.
Yep.
And as long as you're in good health and you can help, it's going to be great to still team up with you.
Yep.
Because I know there's a lot of organizations. You got to get an audience. You got to contact the audience.
Got to call audience people and try to line up an audience. Sometimes I can line up a bus from a senior
Right.
complex, and they come in by bus. We can handle this. This studio is handicap accessible.
Right.
The only thing is the bathrooms. You need help to push the door open if you're in a wheelchair. They do not have the buttons on that. They have the buttons getting into the building, and there's no.
Well, in the next upgrade, they're going to have to
that's it.
stress that.
They've been upgrading our equipment here, and from when I started, a friend of mine that started with the KSTP Sunset Valley Barn Dance back in the years ago. He was one that did a lot with local bands as well as nationally. He had Gene Autry here. He's had all kinds of people. Little Jimmy Dickens and all of that. They all performed here in Minneapolis. And so that's kind of where David Stone started that show down in Nashville. And he moved it to Minnesota and polka country, and took the chance that he'd be able to establish a country show up here in Minnesota.
Right.
And at first it was on KSTP radio. And then they came to him after TV came out, and they opened up the studios for KSTP over in St. Paul. They told him they were going to switch him to TV. He said, "Oh my gosh, it's hard enough just to put the show together. Now we have to look good." I've got the history on that I look over periodically, and I see how a successful show of this type can succeed in this country. We have a show here called Polka Spotlight, and we survive.
Right.
And so we try to reach out for every style of music. The only thing I don't think that is succeeding in this area, the other people have tried it, is rock and roll. But
Yeah, I've seen bands come in here and they
Yeah.
just do one shots and stuff like that. There's not much regular. I did a regular show with Shaky the Shaman down here
Yeah.
for a couple years. We had some great talent, the Arneson brothers, and we went every Monday for almost 3 years. It was
Yeah.
a great time, and we'd take time off in the summer, of course, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But I never had so much fun in my life. So
Yep.
you good people out there, if you got a country western band and if you're around this area, stop by. If I'm here all the time editing. If you don't see me down here, just leave your card at the front desk. We got great people, Trudy's there, or some of our Javi or Dustin, great people. Come on down here, check out our facility, especially if you live in the northern suburbs. And I could use some help. I could use an assistant. And in about 10 years, you could take the show over.
There you go.
All right, so we're down to our last couple of minutes. Wyatt, can you tell us some final thoughts of 10 years, over 100 shows down here? It started out as Northwest Community TV. Now it's called CCX Create, all part of this CCX media empire.
Right. Well, one show that I looked forward to, and I did a lot of work for it, but it failed. And that was the only show we've had to scrap. And that was a sing-along.
Really?
A bonfire sing-along. And Menards loaned us a fire pit
Oh, really?
with the flames like
Nice.
artificial. They loaned us that for the show. I put together the words to dozens of songs like You Are My Sunshine and
Sure.
all the verses of You Are My Sunshine, not just the first verse everybody remembers. And then also I would put together songs that 5'9", eyes that shine, boy, she looks like Frankenstein. No, that's my version. It's 5'2", eyes that, Anyhow, 5'2" is the song. Another one in there. There were all kinds of them, and I put them in a booklet that I handed out to the audience. And I had lined up entertainers from about 5 different bands, 6 different bands, a guitarist from there, a banjo player from that band. I had every instrument up there, and we circled a half circle around that fireplace, that bonfire, and doused the lights a little bit so it had an atmosphere. And the audience still had enough light they could read it.
Okay.
Because most of them are seniors and enjoying it.
But what happened?
Well, the problem is there was a wrinkle in the audio, and it messed up. There was a problem, and I was going to redo it many months later, but our fiddler, that got, he had cancer, and he passed away, so we couldn't get him back. And I've tried doing it again, and it hasn't successfully gotten off the ground, but I've still got the music books, and I've got all this.
Maybe I'll have to try and
that would
pick
be
up.
a thing to do. It's not. You don't have to have one single band here. You just introduce them individually and the band that they play in.
Well, Wyatt Wadzink, once again, I want to appreciate you for coming down here.
Well, I thank you for having me come in.
And it's been great working with you for co-hosting for the last couple years. And what happened here is I'm down here editing all the time. I'm working on other shows, and my own show is Free Access TV News. And I think you were short a director, maybe something at the last minute. And I said, yeah, I'm down here editing. I can help out. So that, I helped out a few times when you were in a pinch.
Right.
And then we kind of hit it off. You saw that I'm competent. I know what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
And Wyatt said, well, we always could use help. And then you had your little accident, and you needed support that way. And I filled in there, and then gradually now I'm taking over the show.
And I'm sure that you'll do a good job because I've seen your other work, and you know what you're doing. Plus, you're good at editing bad things out. I never edited any of our shows. I think a couple of our shows I had to try to pump up the
sound
audio,
some tweaking. Yeah,
tweaking of the sound, and that was about the only thing we've done as far as editing goes, because what happens, and it's one of those.
Well, hey Wyatt, thanks again,
Thank
and
you.
I hope I can put 10 good years in like you have. And
Right. I'll still stick my nose in now and then.
I know you were thinking of maybe moving to Forest Lake, or no, maybe then you're maybe even Arizona.
Arizona was a thought in my mind, but getting feedback from the kids and.
Okay, it's hard to leave the family here. That's in this area, right?
Right, and if you get sick and you have to go to the hospital, you're so far away from.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. Once again, this has been a special edition of Country Music Jubilee. I'm Richard A. Claddy. Great hour with Wyatt Wadzink. Great talent, great historian of country music, and a great host of Country Music Jubilee for over 100 shows and 10 years down here. Started with Northwest Community TV, ended with CCX Create. We are all part of CCX Media. Thank you, and tune in, Country Music Jubilee. Thank you.